Liberty Tree Day, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming out here and joining us today. Very quickly, oh, this is perfect. If he's going that way, he won't hear me. I'm about to embarrass him. So,
Sorry, I had to shut off my phone. I forgot.
So, for a lot of people, they don't have a lot of tangible connections to history itself. History is not something we can touch in many cases, and for a lot of people, their only real connection to history is a dusty book in a boring class. And for many of us, the two things that can directly connect us to our history, and some of the oldest witnesses to history that we have in any city or town. Some cities and towns like Boston are lucky. They have old buildings that you can look at and you can explore and you can admire. But for many of us, our only real tangible connection to history is the stones of our ancestors and our trees. When I was a kid, there was a tree at the end of my street in the town I grew up in that had been used to mark the boundary of the next town over. And it was used when it was about 100, 200 years old to mark a boundary. And that was in 1749, and it's still there. So right near my parents' house is a tree that some people think could be 400 or 500 years old, just at the end of our street. And you know, you take it for granted, but in truth, it bore witness to everything that has happened over the past 400 or 500 years. And when a lot of people think of a public servant, they often either think of a bureaucrat or a politician. They think of someone giving a speech or someone sitting behind a desk. But in truth, a public servant is simply someone who decides to use their gifts to enrich their community instead of enriching themselves. And we are particularly and uniquely blessed in Malden that we have a public servant who uses his gifts to protect our stones and our trees. Not just to protect the trees that give us the air we breathe, but also to protect the ancestors who gave us the lungs that we use to breathe that air. So I just want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to the man whose vision created this and also whose execution led to this. Please give it up for Chris Rosa, our amazing tree warden, the cemetery director. Chris Rosa is the man. So what is this? What is the Liberty Tree? Why do we care? So what happened was 260 years ago today, on August 14th, 1765, if you visited the town of Boston, you were visiting a peninsula. It was a small piece of land, and there was one little strip of land in and out of Boston that only was big enough to accommodate the road. And that was referred to as the Boston Neck. Today it's Washington Street. And when you first crossed into Boston, the first thing you saw was a giant elm tree that just stood right there, right at the entrance of Boston. Now there are other elm trees, there are other historical and important elm trees in Boston. But 260 years ago today, on August 14th, 1765, the people of Boston woke up and discovered that someone had decorated the elm tree, this one elm tree at the front of the Boston Neck, and they had decorated it in protest of the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act was the first time in history that Parliament in Britain had directly taxed the American colonies without our consent, and someone had decorated it by including an effigy was hanging from the tree that was marked AO, referring to Andrew Oliver, the person in charge of collecting the Stamp Act taxes here in Boston. And there was a boot at the bottom of the tree, and the heel was painted green, and there was a little devil coming out of the boot, just kind of poking its head out. And the green boot was in reference to the two crown officials responsible for the Stamp Act, George Grenville, hence the green, and the other guy whose name was literally Lord Boot. So they had a boot there so that everyone would understand that's who we were making fun of. And from that day forward, the Boston elm tree, that Liberty Tree, became a gathering point for the Sons of Liberty. But one of the reasons why the Liberty Tree was so important, like Chris said, when the war started, the British then cut down the tree after the siege of Boston had already been underway. But what's so important about the Liberty Tree, and the reason why we want to plant a new Liberty Tree today, why do we need a new Liberty Tree? Why isn't this just a historical footnote to talk about, generally speaking, or to talk about in a classroom at a lecture or something? The Liberty Tree became important on August 14th, 1765. That was the beginning of a 2-week period that we now call the Stamp Act riots. But the war didn't start. The American Revolution, whose anniversary we celebrate this year, the 250th beginning of the war didn't start for another 10 years. It was another decade of protest and community and debate that we built here in Massachusetts. It took 10 years of that just to begin the war. It took another 15 months of war before Congress even said, by the way, this is about a new country called America. It took another 7 years after that for us to even win the war, for the rest of the world to acknowledge that, yes, we are an independent country that we've been saying for 7 years. And then after all that was done, we ratified the Constitution, and that marked the beginning of forming this more perfect union that we enjoy 250 years later. So, as much as I do want to say this is here for some sort of historical significance, this is not here for the past. This is here for the present. We want this to be a place where everyone can come and they can recommit themselves to the cause of liberty, because we are the ones who have the power to create the country that we want to see. And that is what our ancestors did, and it is important for us that if we want to create that more perfect union, we cannot rely on others, we cannot rely on institutions. We do this not for ourselves. The reason why this isn't called the freedom tree, it's the liberty tree, is because liberty is the understanding that you are only free if everybody else is free. We do this for each other. So Chris has designed and created this space where we can come and we can reflect, and we do it in a section where we recognize the men and women who understood that last full measure of devotion, who understood what it took. However, this is not the only way that you can serve. In the same way that we have so many different kinds of public service, there are so many different ways in which we can help create our more perfect unions, and every single one of us has a role to play in doing that. So we want this to be a place of reflection, like Forestdale Cemetery has been for all of us for about 150 years now. But this is a place that you can reflect on the nation, on yourself, on citizenship, on your role in this country. This is a place where we can all be called upon to help form that more perfect union. Now, the Trivial Pursuit tidbit stuff. Chris can talk about the tree itself. But this is an elm tree, just like the original Liberty Tree was an elm tree. But these three flags over here, hopefully y'all recognize at least one of them. But the reason why we chose these three flags, the flag on our left, which is just the red and white stripes, which at first, your mind does that thing. You're so used to seeing red and white horizontal stripes, and you go, oh man, they ordered the wrong flag. That is not a Timu American flag. The one on the left, that is actually the flag of the Sons of Liberty. So this is actually the flag that they then put up on top of the Liberty Tree in downtown Boston. So before we were American, but we knew that our rights were being infringed upon just because we knew our worth as human beings, that was the flag that we put up on the Liberty Tree as a form of protest. Then, after 10 years of forming this community, after 10 years of creating and building that road that we then walked down that resulted in the country we enjoy today, there was a period of time where we didn't have the country, but there was a brief period of time where literally Massachusetts was at war with England. And people from other colonies started to show up, but it hadn't been officially organized yet. It was kind of chaos. We were truly building the plane while we flew it. And at the Battle of Bunker Hill, the flag on the right-hand side, the pine tree, had been a symbol of Massachusetts going back to our founding. Because also the timber industry was very essential to us, especially when Massachusetts, 70% of the state used to be Maine. So the pine tree had been often used as a common symbol for Massachusetts, but at the Battle of Bunker Hill, we had other people from Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, and we didn't have a nation. We did not have a national flag yet. So this flag, the Continental flag, the Massachusetts pine tree flag right over here, this is the flag that flew. You can actually, I believe you can see it in the famous Jonathan Trumbull painting, The Battle of Bunker Hill. That's what you see in the background, is that one. So back when we didn't have any institutions, we didn't have anything other than our own principles to unite us, that was the flag we used. And of course, out of this, out of the activism and out of the sacrifice, we now have the American flag we enjoy today right in the middle. So uniting we always have to remember not just the past as a whole, but also the phases we've gone through in the past. We have to remember every bend in the road that brought us where we are today. And only by knowing that can we build the road that will take us into the future, which is the responsibility of all of us. So I just want to thank you all so much for being here. Again, I want to thank Chris Rosa for his incredible vision and his dedication here. And I know a lot of people, we decided we wanted to put it on the road because I know not everyone's comfortable stepping on grass in cemeteries, but we had a little plaque here, so actually I wanted to invite Chris and the mayor over to help us dedicate this spot now. We have a plaque here on behalf of the City of Malden and Chris and the Malden Historical Society. So Mayor, come on over. Yeah. All right, and here we go.
1, 2, 3. Wow. Very impressive.
So for generations to come, Malden now has its very own Liberty Tree.
Yay. Huzzah!
Huzzah! So friends, actually,